Before the fall of man, an angel sealed something beneath Solomon's temple, and now it's waking up. For centuries, the Vatican claimed the Forsaken Knights were heretics, twisted by dark forces and exiled in divine retribution. Their story, we were told, ended in fire, betrayal, and holy justice. But recently unearthed documents, sealed in a chamber beneath the Vatican, suggest a far darker truth, one the Church buried and hoped would never resurface. In 2024, a Vatican archivist vanished without a trace. What remained was his journal, recovered by an underground historian named Marcus Velen. In its pages were sketches of rings
and other holy relics,
pages of ancient Latin warnings, and one name repeated over and over: Nero Obscurus, the Black Pope. What Velen discovered in that chamber unraveled everything. Beneath the Roman streets, through forgotten catacombs, he found a second archive. In it, forbidden texts chronicled the origin of the three Forsaken Knights, warriors once honored by the Church for their role in protecting Christendom from monsters and demons. But it wasn't monsters who condemned them. It was something far worse. Behind Pope Boniface VIII was a shadow figure, a manipulator, a cultist cloaked in sacred robes. The Black Pope did not serve heaven. He sought to unseal hell. He twisted Boniface with ancient rituals, seducing him with visions of divine conquest. Through the Pope, he ordered the knights to retrieve a holy relic from a Templar stronghold. But this was no act of faith. It was a death sentence. The relic they sought, the shield of Archangel Michael, the last divine barrier, sealing Lucifer's tomb. The three knights obeyed, not because they believed, but because they feared what would happen if they refused. It wasn't the Pope's authority they feared. They knew defiance meant war with an entire empire, one that would drown countless innocents in blood. Even for them, that cost was too high. And so it begins, the true story of the knights who fell not for sin, but because they stood in the way of a dark resurrection. The Vatican called them cursed, but history now calls them something else, guardians of a truth too terrifying to speak. This is the part of history they burned, and now it's resurfacing. The year 1293, darkness had begun to creep across the corners of Christendom, not through armies, but through whispers, disappearances, and impossible creatures seen by moonlight. It was the year the veil began to thin. The monsters long written off as pagan myth had returned, and at the root of this unnatural uprising was not hellfire, but holy command. Behind the grandeur of Rome, hidden within the crimson-draped halls of the Vatican, Pope Boniface VIII sat twisted by forces unseen. His gaze had grown empty, his prayers mumbled nonsense. What none dared speak aloud was the truth. He had been possessed. The cult that ensnared him worked in silence. Cloaked in obsidian robes, they called themselves Lux Noctis, the light of night. They had infiltrated courts, kingdoms, even the College of Cardinals. Their leader? A faceless figure known only in legend, the Black Pope. His goals were ancient, his methods eternal. He desired not only power over men, but dominion over realms, heaven, earth, and everything beneath. And to break the seals between them, he needed a key, the shield of the Archangel Michael. The artifact was rumored to be hidden in a remote stronghold, guarded by a breakaway order of Templars. Surrounding it was a village caught in winter's grip, forgotten by Rome, untouched by time. To retrieve it, Pope Boniface summoned his most feared agents.
They will suspect nothing. The plan proceeds as ordained.
They were called the Forsaken, three knights who had once stood as paragons of virtue, now wore obsidian armor, threaded with crimson veins. They were whispered to have made a pact with Solomon's rings, relics unearthed in the Holy Land, cursed with unspeakable power. When worn, the rings gave them strength beyond mortal men, but at a cost. Every battle chipped away at their souls. The Church told the world they were monsters, but what the world didn't know was this: they had volunteered for the curse to protect the innocent. They had vowed never to spill innocent blood, even as the Church tried to turn them into executioners. But now, they were given a command that defied every vow they held sacred. Boniface ordered them to march on the stronghold, retrieve the shield, leave no survivors. They did not argue, they did not weep. They accepted, not because they agreed, but because disobedience would mean war. and the destruction of all they still sought to protect. And so they rode into the north, through frost-bitten woods and haunted valleys, their silhouettes like wraiths upon the snow. They carried guilt like chainmail, but determination like fire.
When they reached the village, something felt wrong. It was too quiet. Windows shuttered, doors barred, children peeking from behind curtains, only to vanish. The air held no joy, only dread. The castle loomed beyond, its walls silvered with frost. They approached the gate. It did not open. Instead, figures appeared atop the battlements. Archers in gleaming white mail, bows drawn, faces hidden behind hoods. Then he appeared, clad in robes of ivory and chain of argent steel. The White Knight descended the steps. At his side, a shield glimmered, not with sunlight, but something older. It pulsed. It hummed with divinity. He said nothing at first. Then Sir Cadogan stepped forward. "By decree of His Holiness Pope Boniface," he said, voice steady, "you are to relinquish the relic." The White Knight looked at them, not in fear, but in sorrow. He shook his head. "Tell your Pope," he said, "I serve a higher command." Sir Benedict's grip tightened on his sword. The knight's refusal was treason in the eyes of Rome, but something in his voice, some ancient pain, made the Forsaken hesitate. Sir Alaric, always the skeptic, whispered, "This doesn't feel right."
The White Knight took another step forward, shield gleaming. "You seek what lies beyond comprehension. That shield is not a weapon. It was a seal. They say I died of illness. They say I ruled Jerusalem for but a year before the fever took me. Let them believe that. The truth is far darker. 194 years ago, during the First Holy War, Jerusalem, July 1099. The city was a furnace of stone and blood. We had fought for weeks to take it. The siege drained us body and soul. On the 15th day, we broke through. I stood at the gates of the Tower of David, steel in hand, watching as the Fatimid garrison crumbled. One man remained, a warrior wrapped in white and red, the Caliphate's final defender. His blade was his oath, and I knew the fight he brought was personal. The others formed a ring around us, my knights, his guards. No one spoke. We fought. His strikes came fast, precise, mine, heavy, deliberate. Every blow threatened to end it. Dust flew, steel screamed, but in the end, I won. Not because I was stronger, because I had to. He knelt, broken, but alive. "Go," I said. "This city is mine now. Keep your life." He bowed and vanished into the ruins. But my war was not over. Days later, beneath the ruins of the temple, we uncovered something ancient. A tunnel, older than anything we'd seen. We descended, torches in hand. What we found defied belief. A chamber of megalithic stone. The walls were carved with visions, angels in combat, one casting another into fire. In the center, a shield embedded in the floor, a great sword beside it. I reached for the shield, but it wouldn't budge, so I pried it open with my sword. It moved. A shadow slipped from it, silent, alive. It took one of my knights before we could blink, possessed him. His eyes turned red. He grinned, and then he took the sword. He came for us. I watched my men die, one by one. Their cries echoed in that tomb, until only I remained. I fought him, this thing wearing a knight's body. My shield burned with light. His sword howled with darkness, but he was too fast, too strong, too old. He struck me down. I felt nothing but the cold. They buried me in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, told the world I had died a hero's death. But the shield, it was not done. Its power pulled me back. I awoke in the grave, alive, cursed, reborn. I left Jerusalem, took the shield, returned to Lorraine in silence. Since that day, I have hunted the thing that killed me. I am no longer a king. I am the advocate of the Holy Sepulchre, and I will not rest until the darkness that escaped that chamber is put back where it belongs. The White Knight lowered his shield, but his stance did not soften. "You are not always monsters," he said. "I know what you found beneath Solomon's temple. I know what it did to you." Sir Alaric flinched. "You know nothing. I know enough." Sir Alaric vanished in a whisper of shadow, reappearing behind the White Knight with the deadly precision only the rings could grant. Steel sang. His blade shot forward toward the shield, aimed not to kill, but to separate the holy relic from its bearer. But the White Knight turned just in time. Their weapons clashed with the sound of thunder. Sparks lit the sky. The force of the blow shattered frost from the stone walls. "Stand down!" the White Knight roared, not to Alaric, but to the archers above. "This fight is mine." Alaric didn't wait. His blade danced, flashing like lightning. striking from impossible angles. The cursed energy in his armor surged, feeding off his rage, his desperation. But the White Knight was calm, centered. Every block was effortless, every parry divine. The shield moved not like a weapon, but a will, anticipating, deflecting, absorbing the other Forsaken. Sir Cadogan and Sir Benedict watched in tense silence. "This isn't just battle," Cadogan muttered. "It's prophecy." Alaric growled.
You don't know what it's like to be bound to these rings. To hear whispers when you sleep. I do, because I wore one once.
Alaric froze for half a second, and the White Knight struck. His shield slammed Alaric back, sending him skidding across the frost-covered stones. Blood trickled down Alaric's mouth, steam rising in the cold air.
You lied. You said the rings were evil.
I said they corrupt. I never said they couldn't be redeemed.
Alaric launched himself again. This time, fury and pain blurred into each strike. His sword shattered stone. The sky darkened. The curse inside him screamed for blood. The White Knight withstood it all, until in one final motion, he disarmed Alaric with a twist of the shield and brought the edge of his blade to the knight's throat. But he did not strike. "You're not lost," the White Knight said quietly. "Not yet." Alaric's chest heaved. The fire in his eyes faded just slightly. Then he lowered his head, and for the first time since donning the ring, he whispered,
Help me.
The archers above finally lowered their bows, and the snow began to fall again. Peace, for now, had returned. Snow crunched under iron boots. Sir Benedict and Sir Cadogan emerged from the white haze, their hands gripping their swords, but not drawing. Their eyes flicked from Alaric, kneeling in the frost, to the White Knight, whose blade still hovered near his throat. They did not speak. Tension hung like a blade suspended mid-drop. The White Knight turned slightly, not enough to expose himself, just enough to acknowledge them. He yielded, he said. "The battle's over." Sir Cadogan gave a cautious nod, but didn't lower his stance. "Forgive us," he said. "We've seen what he becomes when the ring calls." Alaric's voice, low and ragged, interrupted. "I'm still me. You attacked alone without our wishes. We always move as a unit, brother. You know this. Stand on your feet." The White Knight stepped back, sheathing his sword with a metallic whisper. He asked for help. That alone means the corruption hasn't won. A moment of silence. Shattered.
Sir! The village! It's under attack!
An archer pointing frantically down the mountain. The White Knight spun toward the cry, as did the three Forsaken. Another soldier appeared from the opposite side of the rampart, panic lining his face. An army is approaching from the rear, marching fast. No banners, no sound, just movement. The air shifted. That fragile peace was gone. Sir Cadogan stepped forward, urgency rising in his voice. "You stay with your men," he said to the White Knight, who had already started issuing orders. "Hold the mountain. Keep that shield from falling into enemy hands." The White Knight nodded once. "And you? We'll take the village," Cadogan said. "Whatever's down there, we'll handle it." The three knights moved in sync, not as cursed outcasts, but as brothers in arms. Alaric gave one last glance to the White Knight, who met his gaze with something rare. "Respect. Ride hard," the White Knight said. "If any of the relics fails, nothing down there will matter." Benedict climbed onto his horse, eyes scanning the mist that veiled the village. "Then let's make sure it doesn't." The mountain echoed with the thunder of hooves as the Forsaken rode into the descending storm, toward the fire, toward the unknown. Above, the White Knight turned to his soldiers.
Form the line. Prepare for war.
Because the night had broken, and now the enemy was coming from all sides. Screams from the village below echoed like war drums. Fires lit the rooftops, spreading like veins across the once quiet hamlet. "What are they?" Cadogan shouted, eyes narrowing. The streets writhed with movement, but these were no men. They were wretches, twisted creatures with elongated limbs, jagged horns, and faces wrapped in strips of skin-tight flesh. Their mouths were wide, stitched into grins, leaking black smoke with every breath. Some skittered on all fours. Others leapt across rooftops with sickening agility, claws carved through timber and bone alike. The villagers stood no chance. The Forsaken dismounted mid-charge, blades already drawn. Sir Benedict raised his sword, drenched in red light.
Time to remind hell why it fears us.
They plunged into the fray. Benedict's sword cleaved through wretches like parchment, each strike echoing with a hollow chime. He spun, parried, decapitated, never halting. His crimson-ringed armor hissed as it absorbed the blood of beasts. Cadogan waded into the thickest cluster, sword flashing. A wretch leapt at him, its jaw unhinged like a snake's. Cadogan impaled it mid-air, pinning it to the ground with a roar. Alaric danced between buildings, shadows cloaking him as he picked off the largest beasts. One wretch towered over the rest, nearly 10 feet tall, plated in black bone. It roared and charged. Alaric met it blade first, sliding beneath its talons, severing its legs in 2 clean strokes. As the monster fell, he whispered, "Next!" And still more came. Atop the mountain, the White Knight stood silent as another soldier screamed, "Sir, they come from the rear!" He turned. Over the ridge came the Hallowed Ones. They looked human once, but no more. Robed figures, faces hidden beneath glass masks filled with ashes. Their hands glowed with runes that twisted the air. From their feet poured spectral fire, consuming snow in an instant. They marched in silence. The dead followed them, reanimated corpses with iron stakes, driven through their eyes and mouths, twitching with a malevolent purpose. The White Knight lifted his shield.
Hold the line.
No one
reaches
reaches
the
the vault.
vault.
The defenders formed ranks. Bows loosed. Arrows ignited mid-air as they struck the rune bearers, who shattered into flame and bone. The dead surged forward. The White Knight met them first, his shield bursting with divine energy. Each impact disintegrated his foes, leaving scorched imprints in the stone. Behind him, his men followed, blades singing, voices raised in prayer and fury. A Hallowed One stepped forward, chanting in a forgotten tongue. A wave of dark energy crashed over the wall, but the shield met it and deflected it. The sky cracked, and the war of monsters raged on. The village lay in smoldering ruin, but the beasts were slain. Their bodies twitched in death, black blood steaming against the frost-bitten earth. Sir Cadogan pulled a necklace from the throat of the fallen leader, its emblem glinting in the firelight, a serpent devouring a cross, crowned with obsidian thorns. Alaric stared. "That's the same mark, the one the Black Pope wore." Benedict clenched his fists. This wasn't a random attack. They sent them. The Vatican sent them. "No," Cadogan said bitterly. "Not the Vatican. The thing wearing its skin." They stood in silence, breath misting, while villagers wept behind them. What was once a holy command had revealed itself to be heresy in disguise. A blasphemous war waged by a false pope and a cult that had wormed its way into heaven's most sacred seat. The White Knight approached, wiping blood from his blade. "The relics were never the goal. Control was. They used you to weaken us, split us apart." "Not anymore," Alaric said. His voice carried no anger now, only resolve. Benedict nodded. "They've declared war on their own defenders. Let's give them a war worth fearing." Cadogan mounted his steed. "We ride for Rome." The White Knight glanced toward the horizon. Storm clouds churned over the southern hills. "Then we ride together. 4 knights, once enemies, now bound by fire and betrayal, turned their backs on the ruined village. Snow swirled around them, but their path was clear. They would ride into the heart of deception, into the lion's den. And this time, they would not ask permission. They would burn the rot from the inside out. The road to Rome awaited, and with it, the final reckoning.